Misfits, and welcome. I'm Amanda here, and we have a sort of a different type of video today. We will be interviewing. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dennis. I run the Okayest DM channel on YouTube, where I make mistakes playing D&D so you don't have to.
Perfect. And we're sort of talking about homebrew campaigns and sort of why we pick them, why we like them, all those wonderful things. And so I've got a couple questions here that we're gonna answer. So I guess number one, when given the option between published campaigns and homebrew, why pick homebrew?
So I've only ever done one published campaign, and then I switched immediately to starting to write my own adventures. And the reason at the time for me was because I wasn't playing enough D&D. I wanted to be able to do something away from the table. I didn't want to have to wait for us to figure out the schedule and all get together at the same place at the same time. I wanted to be able to work on, this amazing imaginary world without needing other people there. And so I just sort of started building it on my own without really a direction to go at first. But that was the biggest reason at the time why I started doing homebrew instead of, reading someone else's published adventure.
That's so
and
relatable.
I think it was a good choice. My world has been growing for 8 years now.
That's awesome.
I don't remember the first bits of it. Like those cities that I built in the first couple months just don't exist anymore.
I love it. I totally get that. Yeah, I sort of the same, because my one main published module, or at least a full campaign, was Curse of Strahd, and not even halfway through that, I was like, all right, I want to build a homebrew world, and I'm just gonna do all of it and dive into it, and who needs, a social life or anything. But
right?
yeah, I dove head first and did not look back. So I I totally relate to that. Okay, well, on that subject, when running a homebrew campaign and maybe even making it as well, what do you think is the most daunting task about that?
Oh, I know the one thing that is the reason that people don't make their own worlds and they rely on published adventures instead is, well, I guess there's two big things. The first is the time commitment, because you actually have to sit down on your own and do all this stuff. For some people like you and me, that's the reason to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, they want to be able to enjoy this game without all of the, legwork, especially if they don't enjoy that sort of thing. And especially if they don't know if they're going to enjoy it. It's a big commitment to even get, your first city built.
For sure.
So I think that's one of the reasons that people don't do this right away, or just are scared of doing homebrewing their own world in the first place. The other aspect that I think scares a lot of people, and definitely scared me when I was starting out, is you're creating an entire world. You're multiple countries, dozens of cities, hundreds of NPCs.
Yeah.
And you have to know all of that. All of that has to be up here or in a document where you can look it up.
Yeah.
And if that's the reason that you're not homebrewing right now, what I have to say to you is start anyway. You're going to have to start with your first city, your first NPC. You have to start somewhere, and worlds are never going to be, there's no maximum, right? Yeah. Even if you have all of the geography in your world, you have all 2 or 3 continents, all of the cities in them, what the countries are, what their motives are. Time moves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if a country gets wiped out for whatever reason, then you have a wasteland and an empty space on the map where you can start again and continue building. So it really is an infinite possibilities for homebrewing your own world, but you do start with just one lady running an inn.
Yeah, I really think that's the key, starting small, because I think when you think world building and you think entire world, it's crazy intimidating.
It's daunting.
Yeah, it's scary. So you just sort of have to all right, let's start small, because your level 1 players aren't just gonna be unleashed upon the entire world. They're gonna start somewhere small probably. So just start where they start and go from there. And you've got time to fill it out and flesh it out along the way. You don't have to, have every road and stone and
you have
whatever.
to know what kind of stone this building is made out of, and the fact that its neighbor is a different kind of stone.
Okay,
that's
but
going to no.
How many feet wide is the road? It's no. Don't worry about all that stuff. It's fine. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's overwhelming, but if you find a way to sort of narrow your gaze to something smaller to start with, just do it. You kind of just have to go for it and don't allow yourself to be scared.
At risk of being cliche, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. All right, well, we've talked about the scary part. What's the easiest part of running and creating a homebrew campaign?
I think this actually stems from the scary part of, you have to know everything. It's a whole world. Mm-hmm. The easy part is that you built it. You were the one that created all of this stuff, so you already know everything. For me, when I homebrew an adventure, I almost never look at my notes, because I remember of going through and figuring out, okay, what's this person's personality going to be like? What are their motives? And that's a lot easier for me to remember than trying to memorize an NPC stat block.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's another reason why I enjoy homebrewing more than running published adventures, is because when I create something, it's a lot easier for me to remember what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. I've written down a lot of information and lore for my own homebrew stuff, but because I made it, I know it. It's very rare that I have to go reference notes for that. Whereas, I don't know, if it's a published campaign and they ask you a question about, the world or things, you're like, oh, well, we gotta check the lore and make sure it's appropriate,
right.
And what
right.
It's a little easier to just sort of, I don't know. It's also your own world, so you can make it up if you don't have an answer.
Right, I was gonna say that. If you are running a published adventure and someone asks you a question, there are wrong answers. Mm-hmm. When in a homebrew world, that's much less common, where you can just say, it was this guy that they worship this god now.
Yeah.
And you just make a quick note, and that's canon.
Yeah, there's been a few times where a player's been like, hey, is this what this is supposed to be? And I'm like, well, it is now. Sure, why not?
Exactly.
Oh, man, goodness.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those moments where a player will start to connect the dots, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it wasn't before, but it is now, of course.
This is now canon.
And I think that's one of the pieces of advice that I see floating around the internet, is to let the players be right about things.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So if a player thinks something is connected, and you're running a published adventure and those things aren't connected at all, you can't say to the player, I don't know, maybe, and then have them be right and be feel that feeling of gratification longer down the road, and it's yes, I was right the whole time. When you're running a homebrew campaign, you can allow that. You can.
Definitely.
It's a lot easier to cultivate that sort of environment and that sort of plot progression that leads to the players' conspiracies being correct.
Definitely. I think it's really important to have elements of your world and story to not quite be complete and to be sort of open-ended, just to see what they come up with. Just because you never know where their minds are going to go. I'm constantly surprised by my players. I'm sure every DM is.
I am.
Every single session, something happens, and I'm like, there's no way I would have ever thought of that. So having that freedom.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
so yes.
Exactly. Like having the ability to take that and make it real in your world is pretty crazy and pretty awesome, for sure. All right. What advice would you give DMs looking to run a homebrew campaign for the first time?
Well, a little bit of a self-plug. I already have a video on this on my channel. So I'll give a quick rundown of the information in that video here. My biggest piece of advice is don't start your own world from scratch. Find a single pre-made adventure. Could be actual Wizards of the Coast material, could be third party, could even be just from a different game. And work your way up from there. What I did is when I started running D&D, I had, I completely forget what adventure it was, but it was just like a free PDF that Wizards had put out. And the adventure came with a full city, like 10 NPCs already built, and I ran that adventure. And when players asked me questions about, the world or the larger plot that isn't actually related directly to the adventure, I made it up instead of like having to go in and look at the actual lore. And from that point, I took the notes that I'd written down from the stuff I made up in session, and that's where I started when homebrewing my world.
Yeah.
Eventually, a meteor hit the city that was pre-built, and which just wiped out the whole thing. So now I could say my world is 100% homebrew. But that is, I think, the best way to start homebrewing is you need to find an adventure that you'd like to run that has, those missing holes. Like in the video I go over, I'm looking at a specific third-party content, and it says it's set in an archipelago, but the whole adventure takes place on one island. So what's on the other islands? What's there? What are the other countries like that are parts of these islands? Are there tribes? Have they been wiped out? And the adventure that I was looking at didn't answer any of those questions, which means you get to.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, I mean, why reinvent the wheel? A lot of making your own stuff is pretty scary to begin with, and there's a lot of great stuff out there that is designed to be a framework that you fill out and flesh out anyway. So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I pick and choose things from other stuff all the time. I'll take a town from, I don't know, a one-shot or something and just stick it in there and then find ways to change it and make it fit into the world. But I think that's pretty solid advice, especially for newbies that have not done that before. Because
it's not as hard as people think it is. Like, you don't
really
even
not.
start homebrewing by from scratch. Like, you don't actually have to do any work to begin. You start homebrewing your world while you're playing already.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, I mean, we got through my questions. If you have any parting words, speak now.
D&D is great, but don't let it burn you out. That is one of the risks with doing your own homebrew world, is putting too much of yourself into it. Like with any hobby, you can definitely go way too hard and then suddenly just get tired of it and quit.
Yeah.
So when you're homebrewing, if you find you enjoy it, pace yourself. If you feel like you're starting to get tired, just take a break. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm actually making a video on this exact topic. But yeah, it's so crucial to take breaks and just be transparent with your table and be like, hey, I need a little bit of time. It's okay. your own sanity and health is very important, and you're not going to be able to keep creating and doing this if you don't stop and breathe and rest.
Right. No, I remember my peak D&D, like when I was doing that and nothing else, I was running 4 campaigns every week.
Ooh.
And playing in 2 more. So I had D&D almost every single day of the week, and I was doing that for like a whole month. And when it got to the 3rd or 4th week of that, I was like, okay, I'm going to like text everyone and say, D&D is canceled this week. I need a break. And they all knew I was like running way too much of this game.
That's
and I'm
insane.
like, they're like, yes, please, like, take a breath. You need to chill.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Man.
I don't ever want to get to that point again. It was at the point where like actually playing it felt like work instead of fun.
Yeah, and that defeats the purpose.
I never want to be there again.
Yeah, no. D&D at its finest should be an enjoyable escape into fantasy. That's what it should be.
The point is to have fun.
Absolutely. All right, well, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube. My channel is Okayest DM. My logo is a little D20 with my cat Hugo's ears on it. And you can find me on Twitter, on Reddit, on a bunch of other platforms. But YouTube is where all of my stuff is. Awesome.
Great. Same here. If you liked any of this, please like and subscribe, and go subscribe to Okayest DM, please. And that's all I got. So have a great day, and I will see you again next time.
Hey guys, you are stuck with voiceover Amanda today. I hope that's okay. And I hope you guys liked this interview. It was a lot of fun to just sit down and talk to a fellow D&D nerd. I feel like anytime any of us get together, all we want to do is talk about this game that we love so much. And I really, really enjoyed just sort of hearing what he had to say and getting to sort of share my own experiences too. He is releasing sort of the sort of other side of this. He interviewed me and took some questions or gave me some questions to answer. So y'all keep an eye out on his channel for that to drop, and make sure you go check it out. You will probably actually have the video of me over there. Sorry about that, guys. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you like things like this, let me know. If you have your own thoughts and opinions about homebrew campaigns and how they compare to published ones, please let me know in the comments below. That's kind of all I've got for you today. Sorry there's no, like, bit. It's probably for the best that I'm not just rambling for like 5+ minutes. So I'll let you guys go. I'll leave it there. Have a good day, guys, and I will see you again next time. Bye.